Hello, everyone. It's Cassandra with In Bite Size. So, we're approaching the end of the year. You might be reflecting a little bit on your career journey. And with that reflection, you might be a little bit hopeful or excited, but at the same time, you might be anxious or nervous. Well, the good thing I'd like to say all roads lead to Rome. So, whether you're at the start, beginning, or just evaluating your career evaluation, that is what we'll be talking about in today's episode. So, today we have Ahmed Gad. He is by day a startup founder who thrives in building technology solutions to help our biggest business challenges. And by night, he is assistant ice hockey coach, helping Rochelle and Co. reach towards the champion. So, Ahmed, thank you so much for joining us today in this episode. Can you tell us a little bit about your career journey?
Of course, thanks so much for having me, Cassandra. I like to introduce myself as an engineer uh, who transitioned to product and business. So I graduated from engineering school. I worked as a software engineer for many years at Microsoft and then Google. And then I transitioned to product management within Google. So I spent some time at Google as a product manager, then worked a little bit at Amazon and then a little bit at Apple. And then I started that startup journey essentially working at a startup to start, and then eventually starting my own company, Bloompath, which we'll talk a little bit about today.
Well, thank you so much, Ahmed, for joining and sharing your career journey. So, as I said, hindsight is 2020. So, has there been any moment in your life that was unexpected, but now looking back at it, you're like, wait, that was actually a very pivotal moment in my career?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say there's a few. Uh, the first one obviously was the transition from engineering to product. At the time, uh, like I said, I introduced myself as a software engineer or as an engineer by training. At the time, I really just wanted to try being a product manager. And I was very fortunate that at the time I worked at Google, and Google has this program where engineers can rotate as product people and they can just give it a try. So I applied to participate in that program, and I did, and I made one of the first like substantial moves, I guess, in my career because I thought I'd be an engineer for life, and everyone who probably seen me at college would have said the same thing. But when I did that rotation, I realized, oh, there's other things that I am actually interested in, or even more interested in than just writing code. And went with that transition, and at the time, I am very, very fortunate and grateful that I had an amazing mentor that kind of worked with me in that process. He actually managed me during that rotation time and then helped me through that transition from engineering to product. And then the second most substantial moment in my career, I guess, is when I left Google because I also thought I'd be a Googler for life. I interned at Google. I returned back to Google as a full-time employee after my internship, and I just almost like grew my career at Google. So it was a very big moment for me to like say, okay, I just want to try something different and try the world outside Google. And yeah, you leave a company like Google with all its processes and its establishment. It's almost like you're starting over. You're relearning things that you thought you're really good at, and you're essentially rebuilding a lot of your skill sets. That was a really big one for me. And the last one that I can think of is when I transitioned from companies of 45,000 people or more to companies of less than 100 people. Going to that startup world again from big corporate was also a massive transition for me because, again, like it's almost like you're relearning everything that you thought you're really good at. The processes are different, the resource dynamic is different, the decision making processes are different, even the decisions that you make are different, the things you worry about are different. So had to relearn a lot of the things that I thought I was really good at in that startup world. So if I look back at my career, these will be the three major moments for me.
I mean, I can definitely relate because I started in the oil and gas industry, grew up in Houston. I was like, I thought oil and gas for life. My dad's in it, my sister's in it. And somehow I ended up in California in the tech industry. So,
Yeah.
like, but as I'm hearing you speak about your experiences in these three moments. Um, and that time was probably very overwhelming, and you probably didn't know if you were making the right choice or what the right decisions. Like, what sort of, what was your headspace, and how did you kind of move forward and took that leap?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is very challenging, and in the moment, it's like it's almost like I'm always seeking the imposter syndrome. Like I'm almost seeking different places where I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? At some point, they're gonna find out that I'm not that good, and I won't have a place there. And there's a few things that I thought helped a lot in the different transitions that I went through. The first is if you can seek mentorship or if you have a great manager, this makes everything so much easier. I was fortunate in my career to have experienced a few really good managers. Sometimes I also have experienced some not so great managers. So it's, depending on where you are, different things happen. But the two main things is to always have a growth mindset. So always learn and not be afraid to ask a lot of questions, even the not seemingly very smart questions. And then definitely find a mentor. And that is something that I actually hold near and dear to my heart until that day. Like even with the business that we're starting, we're very fortunate to have surround ourselves with great mentors and people that help us navigate that journey. And also, it is part of my passion. That's why we started BloomPath, which is essentially a career coaching and mentorship platform that uses AI to help guide employees. So across the board, having a great mentor or coach or manager, however you want to call it, will make a huge impact. And sometimes you're very lucky to be in the right place at the right time, and sometimes that's not the case. And with BloomPath, we're actually hoping that we can kind of create a level playing field where no matter where you're at in your career and with your company, you have some sort of a compass that shows you what you're doing, where you need to be, and shows you a path to get there.
No, that's really neat. I mean, that's something I struggle with. But what you mentioned, what helps as you navigate all this mess that you seem that I'm in or you're in is having that support system, whether it's through mentorship, even friends, other colleagues, and just having someone or some group of people to bounce ideas off and really push you a little bit to be like, Cassandra, you haven't tried this. What are
Yeah.
what are the risks? What are the pros? What's stopping you? What's the first little step that you can take today? So that's my final question for you. So, when you say find a mentor, some people get really, really overwhelmed and freak out and don't know where to start. So, is there any one step our listeners can take today to seek that mentorship and continue along their career path?
Um, Absolutely. So for me, I have a little framework that I like to mention, and my framework is essentially like the three pieces. There's the planning, right? So helping you or finding a way where you can plan ahead and be ready to just to know what comes next. Like planning is always a good idea. So whether it's planning for a meeting, planning for a conversation, planning for a task that you need to do, make sure that you spend a little bit of time preparing the right material, making sure that your priorities are straight, and plan ahead. The second piece of the framework, or the second pillar, is reflections. So, looking back at the things that you've done at a certain period of time, and again, if you're following any software, for example, development processes, that's the part in the agile process of like an end of sprint reflection. So there's the beginning of sprint planning and then the end of sprint reflection. So look back and make sure that what you're working on aligns with where the project you're working on is supposed to be going. So make sure you check in with the right folks, make sure that you're aligned on the priorities and you communicate ahead. So communication that comes from reflection is really key. And then finally, have I like to say growth is the third pillar, but growth is kind of an interesting word because, okay, what does that mean? And I really like the framework of the skip framework. And I think you can look at, there's another podcast called the Skip Podcast. And they really it provides a framework that helps you navigate the next step of your career by looking at the skip step. So it's not where you want to go next, it's about the next. So if you're trying to really like plan ahead, think of where you want to be in like 5 to uh, 10 years, and then work backwards into where you want to go next. And that kind of draws the framework that you can use for the growth. So, for example, if I look at myself 5 years from today and I say, oh, I want to transition from engineering to product management, but I'm still an engineer and I still want to be a really good engineer. So, like, then I can start having more engagement with my product person, understanding what they do, understanding what it takes to build a great product, learn from amazing storytellers and strategists that build amazing products, watch Steve Jobs presentations and so on, and then basically build myself now in order to be where I want to be in the next. And this can be, again, across the board. It can be I want to become a director or senior manager at my company, but I'm still an IC4. So how do I plan my next from where I'm at right now and kind of build that foundation? That's kind of the three pillars that I like to say. So to recap, it's the planning, the reflections, and the growth. And the growth is like the interesting one because it's about like really planning the next
Mhm,
in order to
mhm.
get to where you want to be.
It's like really envisioning that future, that vision that you have, and just taking yourself at the moment. And it's well said. Thank you so much, Ahmed, for sharing those tips. And essentially, wherever you start, just as you mentioned, start with one task. Whether it's that one email that you've
Yeah.
been wanting to send, and then take that time to reflect and then grow what makes sense to you. So thank you so much, Ahmed, for joining our episode today. Appreciate the conversation and the tips that you shared. So as always, y'all, thanks for listening to In Bite Size, and be sure to like and subscribe to our video for more. Right? Take
Thanks for
care.
having me.